What's happening? Benton here. I may be doing this broadcast more for the replay viewers as Yurt, the artist formerly known as In a Yurt with Books, is live. The YouTube channel at In a Thought Experiment. And I believe Yurt said that he's about to go to sleep, and Paul Unslaved is going to continue the broadcast. So that's happening right now. I believe Mitchell's doing some man on the street, potentially getting harassed by the popo. So please be aware that that's happening right now, and that I will be, while I'm sure I will interact with the chat, assuming anybody shows up. I'll go ahead and broadcast more so for the replay viewers. And thank you for watching and listening, as always. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the replay viewers. And I enjoyed JFK beta. And by the way, if JFK hears this, man, feel free to at Benton JA668 if you want to, somewhere in your video title. I'm still figuring out how YouTube works, but since that one had my name in the title, it actually, showed up in my feed. And sometimes his videos do, sometimes they don't. And I do think this is a good example of how scattered we in these communities or these groups or whatever you want to call them, loosely affiliated individuals. And so more and more I'm thinking about maybe some sort of central repository, even a simple, web page with links. But he made a sort of an abstract style video, which I enjoyed. And I myself have made this abstract style of content. So go check out JFK Beta. I think if you just search YouTube JFK Beta channel, it should come up, I'm assuming. And he played a sped up version of when I was preaching on some demonology and also talking about the spirit of wrath, having, had a lot to do with my organs, particularly my gallbladder being all, let's speak specifically, experiencing ill health, where otherwise, although again, not the complete and total cause, the wrath itself, but, and I want to get more into this, but let me take my time. I've been a bit all over the place lately, so I'll go ahead and try to tighten up the broadcast a tad, if I may. Just rolled out of a rest area. Where are we? 287 in Texas, just outside, actually about 70 miles southeast of Amarillo, and headed to Fort Worth. Gonna go pick up my supplements from the Amazon locker, maybe go to Walmart and get some fruit, and try to figure out my life, which is, there can be a lot of disorientation and trepidation involved in a situation as the one I'm experiencing. I'm sure I'll get to that later. Let me not sidetrack myself too much. Thanks for being here. And again, I probably would have just joined Yurt's broadcast, but I really feel compelled to deliver, a solo message. And then maybe here in a little while, we can get a one-on-one. I tend to do a lot better with the one-on-ones, as people may have noticed. Then I get lost in the sauce on the panels, even on my own channel. And one moment, checking in with the chat. The internet will allow. What's up, JT? Good to see you. Davey Crocco in the house. Yeah, man. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. Crocco's a busy man, so he's probably working on his own stuff. Ain't no telling. And he's well, I don't even get into that, but I know he did have a lady in his life, although that's not unusual for Crocco. And also, real quick, Crocco, that does kind of show how so many people, especially on the internet, you might see somebody like Crocco and just assume, well, this is a guy who doesn't have ladies. But I could tell almost immediately when I interacted with Crocco, I could tell he could get ladies without many problems. What's up, Chuck in Tennessee? Good to see you. Yep, there you go. Stream lady and job. Yep, that's a busy man. That's what we like to see out here, by the way. What we like to see. But I had that happen in my own life sometimes. You know, I would be able to get attractive ladies, but then, you know, if the attractive lady wasn't there at the time, and maybe I met some bozo and he just assumed I was a bozo like him, you know, he can't get ladies, and it's like, oh, you can get ladies? Like, yeah, man, I can get. What are you talking about? You know, they have to like rethink their whole life. I see some of that with Krakow. It's kind of funny. Anybody knows what I'm talking about, but yeah, still working with the spirit of wrath, and I am the sick man, at least for now. I've got that Alice in Chains song stuck in my head. But yeah, I've certainly been exhibiting that spirit of wrath has been coming out more and more here on the broadcast, because I do review, even if I don't go back and watch or listen to the broadcast. And I know Pamela had wanted me to go back and hear some of the stuff when Paul showed up the other day. I just don't. It's not that I don't have time. It's that between the illness and what I've been doing with the truck driving and the other things I'm doing, you know, necessarily to cope with my health, it's not that I don't have the time, because I don't believe in that mindset. I'm not able. I'm choosing not to make the time at this time. How about that? I'll get to it eventually, but you know, there's so much content. But how I interpret this, especially in relation to, you know, other experiences I've had with the demonic spirits, the wicked spirits, the unclean spirits, uh, and especially if that is the last one left for me to, you know, receive deliverance from. And again, if somebody doesn't believe in these concepts, that's fine. You know, I'll try to keep it moving and not get too, you know, mired in the weeds of these details. So I'll see if I can tighten it up, because I have noticed the audience, even if I'm on certain spiritual topics that may cross over into you know, actual scriptural basis, you know, they will allow me a little bit of latitude, but not too much. So, I'm very sensitive to that, certainly, or I try to be. Shout out to Big L if he sees the replay or hears the replay. Out there, probably still out there in California. Might be headed back by now. Not really sure. And I've talked about before, the demonic spirits, they work on a legalese, you know, and that's part of what JFK Beta was playing on his video, the part where I'm talking about the legalese of the spirit, you know, and then being able to lay claim to my energy sphere. And then the abstract part, which I didn't understand initially, because I'm really not that bright in a lot of ways, but I do have all of these epiphanies. So through an epiphany, I believe I understood the point he was making about, like, it was the video that he added on after my, you know, discourse was something about kids like injuring themselves from breakdancing. It's an interesting video. I'd recommend that you check it out. But you know, I think I'm picking up what he's putting down there. But with respect to the current condition of my, especially my gallbladder, which may very well heal to some degree. We'll see. That is happening, certainly. That's part of why I've been so sick. The sick man, as I like to say. And that's not, by the way, immediately a lot of people start saying that I'm manifesting that. It's like, no, I'm facing the reality of what this is. That's not me manifesting. I'm certainly doing everything in my power to resolve as much of this situation as possible. And then it's funny, I don't even realize just how ill I am. Maybe ill man would be better than sick man. I don't realize Tommy's the sick man. I mean, let's be serious, but that's more of a psychological thing, psychological / moral. And I do want to talk about him some more, because I'm still not done with this. Me saying I got to have my own space, and then him dress. The whole thing. If anybody heard that the other day, I'm still sort of baffled by that. So, you know, I've sidetracked myself. But yeah, I'm certainly doing everything I can to resolve as much of this health stuff as possible. So I do find it cute when a lot of people will try to imply that, well, you know, that Benton is manifesting this through identifying as the so-called sick man. No, that's not what's happening. So, but thank you for your concern. Much appreciated. And if I'm not talking to you, I'm not talking to you. By the way, thanks for listening. Oh man. So where I see is that, and I'm starting to connect some of these things with respect to my ability to, be delivered from the spirit of wrath, which based on what I've come to know, not what I believe, but what I've come to know through direct experience, it's going to require repentance. And Christ in the Bible did preach repentance, lest we forget. Am I even on the right road here? This looks strange. I think they've had a lot of construction through here and it just looks different. It's a straight shot all the way in, I believe, to Fort Worth. So I've talked about the legalese. So that spirit of wrath, it knows it's not going anywhere. It don't have nothing to worry about because Benton has been unrepentant with respect to the actions that the spirit of wrath can point to through the legalese, not having the free will, and through the legalese and say, look, this is why me, the spirit of wrath, lays claim to inhabit Benton's energy sphere. But then now we see that Benton is very likely on the verge of a true spirit of repentance. My spirit, though, because you see that spirit of wrath, that's not me. That's something else entirely. That does not originate with me. So it's like, oh, Benton, look, he's lashing out. Well, yeah, Benton is allowing his behavior to reach that level, but that's not Benton lashing out. Although I will, own that. That's a spirit of wrath coming out. Well, why is it coming out? Well, it's threatened. That spirit of wrath feels threatened because now, oh man. And again, I'll point you to the Bible and the walking in the dry place. The disembodied spirit. The man repents and gets his affairs in order, gets deliverance from the spirit. Now the spirit's walking in the dry place. Well, that spirit of wrath doesn't want to walk in the dry place because when it walks in the dry place, seeking rest and finding none, what's the rest? The rest is its ability to occasionally lash out in wrath through me. When it's disembodied walking in the metaphorical dry place, it's not able to experience its nature in that way, if that makes sense. The spirit of wrath is unable to. So the last thing, it's going to fight tooth and nail to stay where it's at, stay put in the general vicinity of my gallbladder, by the way. And I know this, and it's a war. I'm at war with the spirit of wrath, but hey, I can't go to war with the spirit of wrath and defeat it with wrath, right? Like that's not going to work. So I can only defeat it through, and we've been talking about the yin yang a lot over here, by accessing the feminine or the passive form, a spirit, inhabiting a spirit of true repentance, a true spirit of repentance, and realizing I'm my intention, at some point will change to never again lash out in wrath, while realizing it could happen. And I will not be, based on what I've come to know, I will not receive that deliverance until I am able to truly repent. And I'm starting to connect this to spontaneity because I myself have been very effective in my life at times by utilizing my spontaneity, while at the same time, and here's the paradox, while at the same time I don't do well with other people's spontaneity. But I myself, my entire life, I've very effectively, although not always, sometimes the spontaneity is bad, but it's often really good. It's worked out for me very well in a lot of ways. Being able to be, well, what happens when I lash out in the spirit of wrath, just like I did when I was yelling at Tommy to shut the fuck up the other day? Well, that was completely spontaneous. It's almost like, and I was talking about the Jeet Kune Do stuff, sort of applying that to Provo Kid. But see, that's almost like when Bruce Lee talks about, in that philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, the person doesn't think to hit with the fist. Eventually it becomes that the fist just hits by itself, more or less. Well, that's what that spirit of wrath is used to being able to do in me. And it loves it because it's unchecked. Oh, by the way, preemptive unchecked aggression. Shout out to Everlast. I heard him say that on the JRE many years ago. Or no, it's in one of his songs, I believe. Yeah, preemptive unchecked aggression. Yeah, preemptive unchecked aggression. All right, let's check in with the chat. I feel like I've got a good got a good basis for some ranting. So let's go ahead and take our time, if we may. What's up, Bravo Kid? Good to see you. And this is not, these are not insults. And what did the yurt thing end? I don't. Are people going to be over here now? And I maybe Provo Kid's multitasking. So I just assumed I was talking more for the replay. But thanks for being here, brother. Maybe he just popped. Yeah. Sometimes I get a little bit guilty when I use certain people to make certain points, and I know my tone of voice can be a little off-putting. So. And the illness, man, back to the illnesses. Like I'm certainly not operating at the top of my game, and I can see it in the last few broadcasts. But then some really good things I believe have come out of those broadcasts as well, especially when I'm so ill that I just necessarily have to lay back and either not broadcast or maybe just have panels and let other people take it. What's up, Rob? Good to see you, brother. And please, I just want everybody to understand that I believe Yurt's still live, so feel free to be a part of that. But I will be honored and complimented if you choose to be over here in lieu of that. Or maybe some people can do both. I don't know. I guess you could just be here in the chat and then listening in over there. Is that how it works? Multitasking. So that's where I believe this inappropriate wrath is coming out. Like even the stuff we saw with Tommy, it was like, yeah, or Timmy rather, not Tommy, Timmy. See, I got two different. Look at that, two different people. Their name starts with T with two M's and a Y. That's interesting. I yelled at Timmy and Tommy. And the messages I believe were appropriate. But then what is that based on? Probably based on like my own resentments in part. But I don't want to get too deep into it. I'll try to keep it helpful for the listener, if at all possible. Oh yeah, well exactly. Yeah, Paul's taking over, which is good. I mean, I like to see that. And if I wasn't in a space where I felt compelled to deliver some specific messages, I would be at least be listening and participating in the live chat. If not, this is the time of day when I seem to be pretty sharp and focused overall. So I might be over there potentially, if not for needing to deliver my message. And I see that EBT's not around as much as he used to. Maybe I'm hoping maybe EBT's doing some soul searching and sort of getting his act together. Because he can say what he wants. He's become a bit of a train wreck for old EBT, but that's really none of my business. So, yeah. So this wrath, I think more and more it's realizing that I think I was going to call this live stream the spirit of wrath asserts, because now I believe that spirit is saying, okay, that spirit needs to assert itself more regularly and in these seemingly inappropriate ways versus in the past. I think that spirit understood, well, Benton has changed and evolved and grown over time. So I think the spirit of wrath was getting in where it fit in, right, to sort of hide from me, lay back in the cut. But so now I think the writing is on the wall for the spirit of wrath, and it's starting to show itself even, when it's in a way where I'm just obviously going to notice, well, that's what that is. Like, yeah, I understand the content of the words I said to the person. That's completely separate from what I'm talking about. Although I'm sure they don't interpret it that way. But it's this spirit of wrath asserting itself more and more, inappropriately. But is it ever appropriate? See, because I have experienced like a righteous anger or a righteousness in an assertive way, and that's different than that spirit of wrath. See, that's something that does come from me. So is the spirit of wrath, is it hiding and sort of trying to mimic a righteous type of outburst, or not even an outburst, a righteous assertive anger, right? Or whatever we want to call that. And I'm getting a little lost for words in there, but I think I'm making my point. I believe I am. What's up, Woody? Good to see you, brother. So I'm right there, man. I'm right there. It's gonna happen. Like it's definitely gonna happen very soon. Enough repentance to then actually expel this demonic spirit, and that's what that is. That's not me. there's nothing that originates within me that can cause me to become so angry, or well, that I can allow to cause me to become so angry. Let me be very specific. Over such a period of time that will, while not being the sole cause of my problems, my health issues, my health woes, certainly a large contributor as far as I'm concerned. That's not something that originates with me. That's something outside of me that, through a legalese and probably from a very young age, most likely. So that, that spirit's inhabited this sphere, energy sphere, for quite some time, most likely. And I think if it is the last one, that means it's the strongest one and it's the most deeply entrenched one, presumably. I mean, that's what I'm guessing. But I see that my gallbladder is improving and healing. Like, I am being healed, right? Now, will I fully heal at the level of my pancreas operating properly? Well, that all remains to be seen. And if that does occur, that will, and please, no health advice in the chat. Pretty please with sugar on top. Pretty please with sugar on top. No health advice in the chat. Thank you. I'm on top of it. So, if I can get back to 85% of what I otherwise would be, that's enough for me, right? I don't need that 100. So it's happening. It's happening. And so I appreciated the JFK beta, because it's like video, because he seems to be taking what I'm putting down and adding to it in a way that, while I did not initially understand where he was coming from, and this is what I've talked about with Kim before the storm, is because I've already detected that JFK beta is on a certain level of intelligence and a certain level of most likely spiritual attainment and physical attainment. A lot of his videos is him doing these physical type exercises, and that is a meditation, by the way. That there's flow states and potentially working with past traumas and such. If that, not everybody has past traumas, by the way, but it's just so across the board. It seems like most of us do. But I'm not speaking for him, but I've already detected that there's something in this person where, when he delivers a message in a video that I don't understand, that immediately I'm going to take it as, okay, there's something here, I'm just not seeing it. But I know enough about myself. Okay, well, just the more energy I put into trying to fight the idea, or try to fight myself to a place of understanding through my intellect, that actually prevents it from happening, versus just, okay, I'm going to sit with this information, and then, hey, I just woke up this morning and one of the first things that popped into my head was what I believed to be the message he was conveying, or part of the message. And I could be mistaken, but I don't believe I am. And I know we're a bit far afield, because I don't know that anybody's seen that video necessarily, but I'll leave it there. And shout out to Paul. I was referenced briefly on the broadcast over at NA Thought Experiment. And and let's transition into the where I'm at in my life. So, and also I noticed my father texted me, but I put my phone in, unless I forget, I always put my phones in airplane mode. And then it's funny with my schedule, my father's schedule, he tends to peak in the afternoon going into the nighttime with his energy, his focus, and all of that, his concentration. So we only have a few hours of overlap. Like, I'm powering down when he's like reaching his full, desire to interact with people. So now I wake up at 11 p.m. and turn my phone on. Oh, there's a message from my dad, but I can't text him because he's asleep. Now, I guess I could if I knew for a fact that his phone was off, but probably it would potentially wake him up. Because that is my dad, and he probably knows on some level I'm not feeling well. And of course, for all I know, he watches the channel. Like, I really don't know, but YouTube does seem to be skilled at knowing that me and him are related, and maybe popping this up in his algorithm, or his feed rather. Wake the boomer. That's right. Yeah, man, this guy's. I hate to be. Well, I don't hate to be. Actually, I like to be critical, but my father, now, this may have changed to some extent, but there for a time, he was basically worthless before about noon, as far as it took him that long to sort of wake up and get to moving around and sort of shake enough of the cobwebs out of his brain to actually be able to, hold a conversation. So I don't know. Maybe it's 10 a.m. Maybe he's rested up, and I know he's got a new lady in his life. So, and I want to get into the Tommy stuff like I talked about. But what I see with my father is, necessarily I had to really become astute at understanding his bullshit, because for a time I just wasn't able to interact with him at all because since I lacked understanding, and because he is very much Jack Talcott. Now, not in personality, but not in appearance, but in the exact same psychological dysfunction with the actual classical narcissism. But that's not, and he gets accused of that, and I don't accuse him of that anymore. I'm talking about, what psychology calls the actual real deal full shot of classical narcissism, right? And this is not to discredit him in any way. It is what it is. Well, I'm now able to interface with him without getting too angry with him, although still occasionally I do, but because he certainly pushes my button. And it's only through my ability to understand where he's coming from based on his own sick psychology. And how many of us, not us necessarily, but how many of these people around us are suffering psychological illness? What's effectively 100% as far as I can tell. Now, I like to go back to this 85%. So I'd say you're looking at a solid 65 to 70%. It's got to be probably more than that of the general public. But yeah, Wake the Boomer is suffering psychological illness, literal psychological, a sick psychology. And I would say, until the individual realizes how sick their psychology is, really what hope is there for that individual? They're beholden to what? They're beholden to the psych meds. They're beholden to the mental health system. They're beholden to all these things outside of themselves that obviously, well, what is something of this world that's outside of myself that offers me help? What's that thing going to do? Well, the nature of the world, the nature of whatever that is to use me for its own purposes. Person A using person B for person A's own gratification. And that's what we see with Tommy. And that's where we get to with what I talked about with the meth abuse, which I don't care. Do whatever you want. I'm not the substance police. But when I talked about every single person I've known that I've observed abuse methamphetamine over time, their morals decline. So now Tommy, the other day, when I'm putting it out to the broadcast, hey, I literally am looking for a shed or a shack in somebody's backyard. Run me an extension cord. Hell, I'll go buy a window unit. Let me do content for a couple of months and figure out if I can heal enough to go back to work, right? And also find a company where I can work at night. I could still keep working right now if this company had any ability to have me work at nighttime. It's just not. It's never going to happen. So, and I'll address that here in a little bit. But so I'm putting this out there. Well, Tommy immediately takes what I'm putting out, and he starts trying to use it to gratify himself, to get me in his apartment with him. So now he's got an interesting, a novel, an interesting person with a novel personality who's, by the way, I'm good at listening. And then if I'm dumb enough to let Tommy get me in there, now I've got person draining me, right? Drain my energy and use me for his purposes. That's a moral sickness, Tommy, whether you see it or not. That's a moral sickness. Well, Benton out here has fortified himself. See, I'm not susceptible to those kind of attacks, but then, now I see, okay, and then I think this is maybe where Woody complimented my long game a little bit, is that, as much as I may seem like I'm vibing with some of these folks, am I really? Right? Or maybe I'm only vibing with them to some extent. Because there's always the Jehovah's Witness brainwashing factor of it's very difficult for me not to revert to being, patient, tolerant, present in the moment, actively listening, accepting of people's strange behavior in order to. But what's in parentheses is this was done. Benton is programmed this way to try to get people into a cult, or he was, which hopefully no longer I'm doing that. Hopefully I'm no longer doing that, and thank God, as far as I know, I never actually brought anybody into the fold of the JW cult. As long as arrogance is attractive, narcissism is a winning tactic. That's interesting, Woody. Yeah, and certainly the women, I know you're not only talking romantically, but I know from my own life, being a fairly arrogant, a fair bit of arrogance is just built into my personality, seemingly. But then, how much of that's even real? But most ladies have the good sense to dislike me intensely, but some actually are attracted to me and my personality. But I think the arrogance, that is a draw, an initial draw. I think that's part of it. And my father's certainly very arrogant, and women flock to him, but not. He also has a lot of positive qualities that women seem to appreciate. Very charming and affable, much more so than myself. I'm a straight up asshole, but sometimes it's hiding because of the programming. Uh-oh, look at us, went all the way into the other lane. Wow, that's not good. Guess we'll better go ahead and pass Old Dominion here. If he saw that, he's probably wondering, oh, there's somebody up here with the flashers on though. We're gonna have to wait. Yes, we're gonna have to wait. Be patient, sir. And with the illness, see, I'm having trouble. I really should have quit the truck driving. And again, I still haven't even quit. I mean, who knows if I will actually manage to quit? But assuming I am able to successfully extricate myself and move out of this truck, I don't really notice how sick I've been until I start to feel a little bit better. So now I am feeling a little bit better temporarily. So now I'm like, wow, damn, I can't believe like how ill I was the last few days. But like I'm not even really aware of it while it's happening. I'm not sure what that is, but it's like I need that contrast of this is what I'm supposed to feel like. And so a couple of months of good rest and working on some content, I think that'll do me good. And if I can time all this right, most likely, with the laissez-faire attitude of this company, most likely I'll be able to cruise into Dallas, Fort Worth, and sort of fly under the radar. And once everybody goes home for the weekend, remember, living for the weekend, then I'll at least be able to hang out in the truck all weekend and try to figure out my next move. Although it's possible they may attempt to try to press me into service today. That could happen. We'll see. And I may very well say, all right, well, I'll give it another shot. We'll see. I hear you, Woody, man, and I love when you share. I don't always know what Woody means necessarily, but I love that he shares, and I feel like I apprehend most of it. The shorter statements certainly I have a better chance. So well done, sir. Yeah, I'm not sober either, by the way. I love to get fucked up. I just can't. My body can't process alcohol anymore. And I was told that to that Crunchy Bee. If anybody caught all of that, first time I talked to him, and I don't mean that. He interpreted that as he had a relative who had like one or two beers and they became drunk. That doesn't happen to me, although I do start to slur my speech on one or two drinks, but then 10 drinks, I'm speaking as clear as can be. It's funny how that works, but speed limit here. Hang on, I got this truck behind me. I just passed. I don't need to get in front of them to slow down. Make sure I'm 75. Yeah, I can no longer, my body can no longer tolerate the amount of alcohol that's required to get me to reach the obliteration phase. See, I really don't like alcohol, so that's probably why I'm not able to moderate my drinking. It's not an AA disease of alcoholism. I only want the obliteration and the destruction that comes from being fully intoxicated with alcohol. See, I really don't like alcohol that much overall. I like getting fucked up. So yeah, I'm not sober. I'm not gonna be sober. I have no plans. If I'm gonna be sober, I need to be sober from this wrath, from this spirit of wrath. That's my sobriety. I think once that happens, the rest of it will take care of itself. I'm pretty sure. And see that, and then when I think about everything I'm speaking on, I think about the audience, or I think about the people at large, which is, I think everybody has their own version of what I'm speaking on, and to some people, it's, they've never addressed any of it, and they've never worked towards resolving any of it internally. Where that is where the opportunity for love and care is, by the way. The chances of going externally to receive care from something of this world, that's very, very much fraught with peril and difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but more often than not, whatever that is outside of me that I'm seeking outside of myself to comfort me and take care of me is going to try to use me for its own gratification, which brings us back to Tommy hearing what I'm saying, and then if I'm dumb enough to let him twist a narrative or spin a narrative, I might be like, oh, okay. That's really what that is. That's a salesperson overcoming objection. Because I've stated, okay, here's what it would take for me to buy what you're selling, Tommy. I must have my own space, and I must be away from people. So Tommy starts to try to sell me based on, okay, well, I can and will provide that for you. Well, no, you can't, Tommy. And no, you won't, Tommy. We both know that. And what's your purpose, Tommy? Oh, he's trying to use me to gratify himself. And that's a lack of morality, Tommy. That's you lacking morals. Has nothing to do with me, Tommy. But by the way, I can't raise people that's grown, as someone I met told me one time, a fellow homeless person. Like, it's not really my concern, Tommy's state of morality, but I certainly have I've strongly developed my borders. We got border guards out here policing these perimeters. No problem with Benton ain't got no problem with boundaries, Tommy. No, sir. But it's not my function to settle Tommy's hash. But I am doing a broadcast, so I will certainly use that, as these experiences as a tool to make certain points. And I think you have a lot of that. Well, that guy's drunk as fuck, stumbling around. You got a lot of people out here. Engaging with these concepts I'm speaking on, but not understanding and not able to practice in their own life, not able to practice enforcing boundaries. Because in this world, if you don't establish and enforce your own boundaries, nobody or nothing is going to do it for you. It's just not going to happen, and you will be victimized, period. And not you, the listener, but the person who doesn't. That's my job. It's not Tommy's job. It's my job. So in a way, I can never be a victim, because if now we get to the never bullshit yourself. So maybe out of convenience, I would, out of convenience in the past, probably have chosen to take Tommy up on his offer. But then I would have to lie to myself in order to do that, because I would have to say, well, obviously Tommy's trying to victimize me through to gratify his own self because of his through the mechanism of his lack of morals. And that the only way I could participate in that would be to lie to myself, which would represent I would literally be abusing myself at that level. I mean, and that's pretty heavy and deep. I mean, that's real. That's what I would be doing, right? Now, fortunately, I'm never desperate. So There are people who become in a state of desperation. They really aren't able to see necessarily what's going on, and they end up in somebody's home, like a Jack Talcott or a Tommy. But then maybe, what we saw with Talcott, if we take him at his word, the people that ended up in Talcott's home, well, they're utilizing a strategy of, well, let's victimize him before he can victimize us, right? Well, I'm not that way. I'm not gonna do that to Tommy. So, but just, I wonder, when people view that interaction, do they realize what that was? Because I certainly do. And eventually, like, it was like, well, I said, man, I'm a man that told another man this is what it is, and that man tried to take it and spin it into something else, and then I was like, well, no, actually, it's that thing I just said. And he did another lap of it. He came back around again. So at that point, I just stopped talking, because I'm like, well, obviously, now we're at stupid or liar. Like, he's clearly, is this really a misunderstanding at this point? Like, I have to think not. But this is a person who was victimized, apparently, who allowed himself to be victimized by not protecting himself, and now he's going to abuse people if those people allow it. And Tommy can say whatever he wants. That's not my concern. However he chooses to try to spin this in the future, that's not my concern. That really happened, sir. And I see what that is. Now, I don't think that, that's more or less par for the course in this realm, by the way. It's not, that's not unique to Tommy. And I know I've done that, my version of that, to people. I know I have. And that's part of when I talk about, that I realized at a certain point, I just assumed I was a good person. And after a hardcore review of my past actions, I realized, well, actually, not only am I not a good person, I had objectively become a bad person through my own actions. But amazingly, the moment I understood that, I realized, oh, now I have power, because I can absolutely create a good person over time through my thoughts and actions, which is what I did. Okay. Now, obviously, it's not 100% good thoughts and actions, but the sum total, if you add it up over time, I am a good person. I have created a good person. And Woody says lust is his most rooted demon. So yeah, I didn't have a lot of problems with that one for whatever reason, Woody. I'm not sure why. Well, I shouldn't say that I didn't have problems with it. It was just that one got up out of here a little faster than some of the other ones, what I should say. But yeah, we all have our own, and it's based on our past choices and what we've allowed. Well, basically what it is let's call it what it is. The child is spiritually perfect. The child comes into the realm in a state of spiritual perfection, and then is taught by the people around it and by the realm at large, is taught behaviors that leads to the being, by the time it's an adult, is in a state of defilement. It has been defiled. And the way that these spirits serve their master Satan is by working to defile the perfection of God, or the Most High's creation. I'm going to try to stop using God, because that really has more or less lost its meaning. But yeah, try to defile the Creator, or the Most High's creation, which is us, by the way. And that's why we are the substrate for the spiritual war between the forces of good and the forces of evil. That's the reason we're the substrate, because we had the purity. We were born pure into this decadent, depraved, defiled, evil, wicked, fallen, nightmare, dystopian, beast system, hell realm. It's a literal book of Job here, y'all. It's a literal book of Job. Or metaphorically, I guess. It's a metaphorical book of Job. I got to stop saying literally. Oh, I like Tommy also. That's part of it. See, Satan itself. Satan, you'd probably like Satan. Satan's probably has a very attractive, alluring personality. I bet Satan will make you feel right at home. And I know I'm not, if somebody doesn't believe in a discrete being, that's fine. I mean, as a human, I think it can be more convenient to think of it this way. So whatever that force of evil is, if that thing has a personality, That's probably just about the most alluring personality there is. And I've spoken of that spirit, whatever that is, as the world's foremost expert in our psychology. And in fact, I would say that that whatever that being is probably created a lot of our psychology and gave it to us through the mass media, through the culture, through our parents. And that's what I tell my parents, and what I've told my people. I broke the cycle. And it's, and Drew's right on the money when he talks about a lot of these folks not having kids. Well, not me, Drew. That don't apply to me, because I don't share some of their strange proclivities. I broke the cycle, because if I had had children at the age of 20, like all my family did, I would have just perpetuated what was done to me would have been done to those children. See, but maybe God wants more. Maybe the Most High is wanting more and more substrate for a larger victory over Satan. I don't know. It's really none of my business. It's fun to think about. And Paul referenced this also. Paul also talked about it's been war from day one. He's right. That's what this is. This is war. So especially these hippy dippy, and I'm not going to say beta male, because if you actually study what alpha and beta means, beta isn't even a negative in that sense. Beta would actually not be a pejorative. It's kind of just become a meme, and I sort of lost my point there. But these guys who want to talk about peace, brother, and oh well, even my dad likes to try to say he's peaceful, or he used to be peaceful, or whatever. Look, guys, there's no option of peace in a time of war. Peace is out the window. Go study. Well, okay, sorry, I'm getting a little worked up. I've read a book about. So if this book about Stonewall Jackson is true, Stonewall Jackson, went to the military academy. He was in the United States Army. He went and fought he was a leader in the Spanish, in the Spanish-American War, Mexican-American War, rather. And then, so he was peaceful for a time. Then he went to war. Then he went back to being at peace, and he taught at VMI, Virginia Military Institute, and by the way, was considered a joke. And now you got people like Ian, who's considered a joke, not by me necessarily, but why all this high vibe and peace and love? Well, at least Stonewall Jackson, when Stonewall Jackson was at peace, he was maintaining a state of readiness for the war that was coming, and furthermore, he was instructing cadets for his vocation on how to go to war. And then the American Civil War started, and that man, Stonewall Jackson, who had maintained himself a state of readiness, he showed himself to be perhaps the greatest warrior of all. Okay? If you think you can seek peace within yourself as a means to an end in this realm, you are fooling yourself. Satan's already won, if that's your goal, sir. This is war, whether you want it to be war or not. You don't have that. You didn't get to choose that. It's not up to you. It wasn't up to Job when Job was offered up to Shaitan in the book of Job. That wasn't Job's choice, or maybe it was. See? Speaking of Job, we had a user named Job over here, Jobe. I thought he was going to email me and hook me up with some beats, but I've been on that spirit of wrath here lately, so I probably turned him off and repelled him. But, everything in its time, I suppose. But what kind of man seeks to resolve the war within himself, but then try to be not in a state of war in the larger sense? Yeah, the warrior... I would argue that the most effective warriors are going to be able to be in a peaceful state while they're waging war, right? To be in that flow state while they're unsheathing their sword, right? But this peace as a goal, that's not up to you. That's up to the Most High. That's the bringer of peace. That's the Prince of Peace. It's not you. That's not your, or maybe it is. It's not my function. I'm the warrior, Jack, or I'm one of them. Meanwhile, not only am I on the battlefield, I am the battlefield, or I'm a part of the battlefield. I am the substrate, as are you. But does your substrate, does that represent a part of the battlefield? Is that territory already claimed by Satan? You see, the war is only waged on the unclaimed territory or the territory in dispute. So if Satan can already lay claim to you, you're not at war. See, I just figured something out. There's an epiphany. So maybe Ian's high vibe, and I'm just using Ian as an example. Maybe he's high vibing and seeking peace because he's already claimed territory. Well, it seems to me like the Most High was willing to cede some territory to Satan in that moment. Say, well, have you considered my servant Job? Meaning, well, let's go ahead and open up a new front in this war, Satan. How about let's just go ahead and open up a new front, since you seem to be roaming to and fro, seeking whom you may devour. Meaning, you're an army, you're a warring army in search of a battlefield. Well, have you considered this potential battlefield over here, my servant Job? Oh, okay. Well, Satan says, okay, well, let me go ahead and survey that ground and consider the state of that earth there, that ground. Oh, well, yeah, of course that particular territory is singing your praises, Creator, because you've magnified him, you've multiplied him. You know, he's the greatest. You know, he's been blessed the most. That piece, that's your most blessed piece of land or territory. So God said, well, shit, let's go fight over there, Satan. Because I can't speak for the Most High. I got to imagine the Most High was got it like that and say, shit, I can fight you anywhere, Satan. I can fight you on any ground, Satan. That's what this is, man, or that's what it is for me. I can't speak for you. And I'm not trying to convince you. If this is of value to you, you take it or you leave it. That's as you like it. This is Burger King, man. This realm is Burger King. It's a Burger King drive-through. On some level, have it your way, Jack. I'm not an authoritarian. I'm not here to impose on you. That's not my function. That's not even appropriate. Part of why I almost never give advice. And if I do, I will generally check myself and say, now, wait a minute, I'm not allowed to give advice. It's not appropriate for me to give you advice. Now, if you ask for it and you seek my counsel, that may be a little bit different. And that has happened. But even then, the advice is generally broad, right? Just like my boy AJ Lloyd emailed me about some things going on in his life. Look, man, it's not. I'm willing and able to speak generally. I really can't speak to his situation specifically. That's not appropriate. Because I might go to unknowingly manipulating, and now I'm gratifying myself through trying to tell him, oh, well, try this tactic or try that tactic in your own life, see what happens. Well, see, I might, part of me realizing that I had become a bad person, maybe I used to come at people like I'm going to try to help them, but then the next thing you know, I'm telling them to do things, but it's actually serving my own gratification. See how it's what I'm talking about. I think it's a mistake to seek any sort of comfort externally, see? Just like my father, man, when I was real sick, man, and I was running out of money. Well, my dad I reconnected with my father, Larry, and he recognized a way to use me to gratify himself, right? The thing is, I had these well-established boundaries, and even then, I had to fight that motherfucker tooth and nail to keep him up off of me. Because I realized, I said, he just wants to get me off in a motel room somewhere so he can play out his Jack Talcottian bullshit, because Talcott has to have people interact with his personality, or he literally fears that he will cease to exist. I firmly believe that. Same thing with my dad. That's your so-called narcissistic supply, by the way. And some of that stuff's starting to lose its meaning as well. but I was in such a dire straits, and I really did want to also help my father, because my father on some level was, and I think this was actually this was not my father doing this. This was the Most High doing this, saying, well, shit, the Most High possibly, and I can't speak for the Most High, may have been resolving two situations at one time, resolving my situation at least partially, to where I was able to go back to work and able to save up this money and able to do this broadcast and able to deliver certain messages, including the one I'm delivering now. See, they say God works in mysterious ways. Well, maybe, I don't know. That's not much of a mystery to me, but whatever. And by the way, when we say I like Tommy, yeah, I do too. But see, part of me at some point gonna tell you to fuck off and fuck you, or hey, don't let the door hit you or the good Lord split you. A lot of that is based on, I don't want people becoming enamored with my personality, because that's bad for me. Because now I see I may be tempted to gratify myself through manipulation. I'm super fucking good at it. And then there's that Eurythmic song. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused. There's people out here who want me to abuse them and will maneuver things to where now I might be tempted. Now I might see an opening. Oh, okay. I can get in here and pull some puppet strings. And I'm super fucking good at it. It just comes naturally to me. And I almost never act on those levels anymore. Almost never. But back to my dad, and it took us like a week of fucking yelling at, I had to yell at him over the phone for more or less for a week while I was in this state of very ill. Every time I yell, my fucking organs hurt, and it was way worse back then compared to now. Thirsty. And I said, well, this motherfucker just wants me to get me in a motel room, because I realized, okay, he's talking about his situation with his wife. His third wife had gotten so abusive, and she had isolated him from his friends and family and gotten him away from any sort of masculine interactions, right? And over a period of time, she had really done a number on his psychology, and she was abusing him emotionally and spiritually, and I believe he was under literal demonic oppression. And I'm talking about demons in the environment, because you got demons in an energy sphere, and then you got demons that can also work in a given environment, a demonic spirit or a wicked spirit. And people say I miss JG, but look, JG's not going to be around with me talking this way. He had to go, because whatever's in him can't hear this talk. It puts too much fear into them spirits, and it stirs them up. Just like this spirit of wrath in me, it's become fearful, and it's stirred up, and it's trying to assert itself. Meanwhile, I put out years ago to the universe or the Most High, hey, I'm going to master myself and master my emotions. Well, what does Wizards say? Be careful what you pray for. Be careful what you ask God for. Be careful what you put out at the level of the law of attraction. Be careful what you manifest. Ask and ye shall receive. Well, here you go, buddy. Here's what you asked for. Well, I'm here for it. Ring the bell. Let's get it on. That's the spirit of Benton. Let's go. I ain't scared. I love it. I love it. I thrive on that level of war. That gets me off. And that's righteousness. That's not no wicked spirit gratifying itself. That's that Revelation chapter 19, starting with verse 11. I feel some type of way when I read that. Yes, I do. I know exactly who and what I am. Been that way for a minute. Yippee skippy yay for Benton. So me and him were able to stay in a motel while I was sick as a dog, and got to rest up enough to be able to go back to work. And then he also was able to get out of his abusive situation. So, but now here I am in a motel room, and I've noticed with these boomers especially, man, it's not probably not only the boomers, but what happens to them is they get in these abusive patterns, right? And then what happens is he removed himself from the abusive situation, but he continued, my father continued to try to enact those same patterns with me. And I also had this happen with this old man who let me stay on his property in Fayetteville, Arkansas for a time. He had a rental property, or not a rental property, an investment property. The house had burned down, partially burned down, and he bought it as, him and his wife bought it as an investment, and then she passed away. Well, he was still dealing with whatever he was dealing with, losing his longtime spouse. And then here I come, and now he's using me to gratify himself. And my boundaries were not fully established, but I did have some pretty strong boundaries then. So what he was able to do to me was limited. But then again, see, I was trying to get something out of it. I was trying to use it for my own purposes. Oh, now I get to camp out on this in this guy's backyard of this guy's property and be left alone and pitch a tent and not have to break camp every day and go off to town and, you know, do what I need to do, right? Working on my own, whatever I needed to work on at the time. But then I had to get away from that motherfucker too, because it became abusive, or it began to become abusive, which is I only ever interpret as me abusing me because I never lie to myself, right? But then again, I'm not ever going to go, part of him wants me, and talking about this guy that let me stay on his property. See, there's something in him that wants me to lash out at him. They feed on that. Same thing with Talcott, see. Talcott is so filled to the brim with this low-level, stagnated energy from over time, this repression, this suppression, this depression that Paul talks about. He's filled to the brim with it. So when he can get somebody else to lash out in wrath against him, he feeds on that. That's when you see Jack with that look of pleasure on his face, and he's doing his neck back and forth. He's feeding. That's psychic vampirism. And what I noticed in my father before I had to stop talking to him years ago was he was an expert at pushing my buttons. I would blast him with my spirit of wrath, or that spirit of wrath that I had become identified with, that was inhabiting my energy sphere. And the demons in my father fed on that. Same thing with this old man, but I never let the old man feed. And he was frustrated. And so he was constantly trying to trigger me to blast him so he could feed, see. But he never was able to do it because I know, especially being from Arkansas, you don't go into another man's property and then lash out at him. You might get fucking dealt with. The court system is not gonna is going to allow that where I'm from. You don't go into another man's home or territory and get all kind of sideways with him. That's not allowed where I'm from. So now in the motel room with my father, we're on neutral territory. And here he is, and he succeeded a few times. And so what I noticed years past was that I would feel like shit after I went off on him, but because he fed, this guy would literally be whistling Dixie and just not a care in the world afterwards because he got a release out of it. He demonically fed on that energy, and it represented some sort of release for him. See, I'm only speaking from what I've experienced, y'all, and what I've observed firsthand. I didn't read this in some books. Now, a lot of the stuff I speak on, I did read in some books. This is probably why Paul got a little cranky with Provo Kid tried to create a narrative where Paul was a student of some certain writer. It's like, yeah, I've absolutely read some things that have helped me have a framework, but I'm speaking from my experience mostly, and also from my observation. Yep, exactly. Non-local feeding across the air. Exactly. And since I'm not violent, it never becomes a physically violent thing. Right. So there were times, and especially in what you see now with the wrath that I've been unleashing on the broadcast and on Z's broadcast, in my state of health that I'm in, what happens is my ability to keep that under wraps is much lessened. So I know it's not a coincidence that here I am, my father is all of a sudden interested in helping his son. Really, he was helping himself. But then I believe the Most High was resolving the situation also behind the scenes, right? Which I may or may not be right about that. That's just what I believe. What's my inclination? That's what it seems to me like. That's a possibility. And I've been guided and protected my whole life. I mean, I've known that for a long time. I figured that out early and often. And I probably used it to engage in a lot of wicked behavior because at some level I knew I had the cosmic blessing. And that's in my astrology, by the way. It's in my chart. Oh, this motherfucker's got the cosmic blessing. That's literally what they call it. I have the cosmic blessing. Well, at what point does the cosmic blessing become the curse if I don't utilize it properly? Won't Satan take a being that was gifted the cosmic blessing and happily turn that into something Satan can use? And then, now it's the curse, from blessing to curse. See how it works? So I went off on him a few times, but it was very limited with my father because I'd recognize, he feeds on this. But also, he really he needed some correction. Now, this is where it sounds ridiculous because I'm his son and he's my father. Look, this is the type of correction I had to give him. I said, listen, man, you're acting like you're my dad right now. I said, I haven't had a dad in 30 years, man. Like literally. I said, by the way, I don't want to offend you, but you didn't give me any guidance back then. And he didn't. My dad guided me not at all. I said, you didn't guide me back then. Why are you trying to guide me now? Like, dude, I've got it figured out. Leave me the fuck alone, man. But meanwhile, I understand you think you're my father. I haven't had a dad in 30 years, man. Like you did it when I was a child, then I became an adult. Meanwhile, I'm sick as a dog. I'm stronger than you, buddy. So, and I'm way stronger than my dad. Always have been. That's just how it is. So I do resonate with Paul a little bit when he talks about his dad some type of way. Ever since my testosterone kicked in, I've been stronger than my dad. That's just how it is, man. Because my strength don't come from his side. My strength comes from my mama's side. But I'm talking about me again. Let me get off of that. So that was part of the correction was, look, man, like I understand you view yourself as some type of way, but that ain't got nothing to do with me. I'm a 47-year-old man here with ain't had a dad in 30 years. And meanwhile, when you were that, you didn't guide me anyway, which is fine. I said, that's fine, but why are you trying now? Because he would, anytime, something about my situation would come up and I'm just a human being who wants to get something off his chest, he tries to go into problem solving. It's like, look, man, you can't guide this. You're not equipped for this to guide this, man. You're like, hey, no, stay in your lane there, partner. Well, then another part of the correction was, dude was acting like a little bitch because this woman he had allowed this woman to get him isolated and away from everything masculine into a realm that she controlled entirely, into a matriarchy. So my dad, who is physically strong and who people might see as a symbol of strength, was so weak that he allowed women to rule over him. And a man ain't a man got a woman for a boss. There ain't a strong warrior. There's not a strong masculine warrior in the realm who is ruled over by a woman, because when it comes to strong masculine energy, we're better than them. I'm better than you ladies when it comes to strong masculine spirit. I'm supposed to be if you can be, if your spirit of strong masculinity is able to overpower mine so that I will submit to your masculine spirit, that's me bowing down to something lower than myself. Well, I've never been that. I never will be that. I'm too strong for that. See? And that's not a diss to a lady. It's just like a man will never be the world champion of baby swaddling. A woman will never be the world champion of something like chess, because you have to have a strong masculine spirit to be the best chess player in the world. You can't do that without being able to embody that, to become the epitome of that. A woman can't become the epitome of that, just like a man can't become the epitome of motherly love. It don't work that way. So they're better than us in the ways in what they're good at. We're better than them. But when it comes to what this realm honors, when it comes to what this realm is all about, the assertive and the masculine, I'm better than them. I'm objectively better than them. So what? My ego's not wrapped up in that, but I damn sure can't submit, and I can't be in a matriarchy. I literally outranked my mother when I was 12 if my daddy wasn't around. That's not hyperbole, y'all. I was the man of the house. Now, she was the adult decision maker legally, but at the level of a spirit and a masculinity, I was the fucking one in charge when Pops wasn't around. If the intruder came, I'm going to have to go out there and fight the intruder to the death, not my mama. By the age of 12, and by the way, that's probably why some little girl who was a little older than me, probably 14, tried to give me a piece when I was 12, because she probably could see that in me and responded to it. See, it's not about what do women want. It's not about what attracts them. It's about what do they say they want. It's not about any of that. What do they respond to? And at the time, I was involved in teaching men how to mimic what a lady responds to. Well, now things are so confused and society's so backwards and inverted. I think it's pointless to even try. That's just my opinion. You know, I haven't really changed over time. Society's changed, and all of that. And I don't have no bitterness, which maybe I did in the past. I got no bitterness. But we know, men, that a lot of how we view ourselves is based on how women view us. Well, generally speaking, I've been viewed favorably over the course of my life by the ladies have viewed me favorably, probably based on my cosmic blessing and my warrior status, not so much my personality or my physicality, I wouldn't imagine. In fact, the personality actually drives most of them away, thankfully. And then you got women want to talk about men being intimidated. No, men are never intimidated by a woman. That's a male. See, man's a status that's attained or lost through action. There's no men being intimidated by women. Now, not when it comes to that. You know, maybe if I was a man having to get involved in some baby swaddling, I probably would be intimidated by a woman's ability to swaddle a baby. But then again, if I'm in the zone of baby swaddling, I've probably gone way off course, because old Benton here's never even really held a baby. I got no attraction to that. That's not part. It's never been part of what I'm doing here. It has nothing to do with children whatsoever. I talk to them like they're adults. By the time they're old enough to talk to me, I'm like, "Hello, sir. How are you?" I talk to them like they're an adult. Good to see you. Have a nice day. So my dad had gotten involved in this matriarchy. So now I'm around him, and now it's just meant, it's man to man now. Meanwhile, I'm lying in the bed, just damn near coming off of damn near drinking myself to death. And I'm like, "Look, man, you're talking like a pussy here, man. What is this bitch shit you're giving me?" Because see, now he's trying to work out his patterns that he had developed with this woman, see? He's trying to work them out, and now he's trying to do that to me. I'm like, what is this, man? Part of that was he operated with her based on a fear, see? So he's constantly trying to placate and assuage her emotions. Now, maybe my dad has some mommy issues. I don't know, see? It's really none of my business. I've never had mommy issues. So part of what I understand about mommy issues is that has to do with the male gets involved in, constantly monitoring the mom's emotional state and then always sublimating their own humanity to placate and to, to play into the woman's emotions, which is a sickness, by the way. It's satanic. It's satanic and demonic, what I'm talking about right here. I've never been involved in it. My spirit of righteousness rises to the fore, even thinking about it. I feel some type of way. That shit, not on my watch, and I don't think it's any coincidence I wasn't around for any of this. If he'd have been talking to me on a regular basis, I'd have been like, man, what are you even doing? This is crazy. A man ain't a man, got a woman for a boss. So by the time me and him reconnected, he wasn't even a man. Well, a man's a status. Hopefully he's back to being a man by now. Hopefully. So part of that was he would try to attend to me. But old Benton, if you know anything about old Benton, if Benton is feeling some type of way, the solution is almost always leave Benton the fuck alone. Just leave Benton the fuck alone. So here I am needing to be left the fuck alone, but because he's got these patterns of trying to placate another person, and I'm like looking at him like, will you just leave me the fuck alone? Here's what happened one time. I almost lost my fucking mind, dude. Sick as a dog in the bed. I sit up to try to throw, I had like a Gatorade bottle I'm trying to throw in the trash. This motherfucker leaped, because we got two beds in the motel room. This motherfucker leaped to his feet, 67 years old, by the way. He has a little more agility than I ever gave him credit for in the old days, but leaps to his feet and physically intercedes in me trying to throw this thing into the trash. Well, that's one of my pet peeves, man. If I'm doing some shit and somebody else tries to physically take over what I'm doing, I lose my mind. It's part of my autism, if that's what that, I'd lose my shit. And I just went off on him. But see, now we're back to the feeding, see? So now it's like, okay, I'm halfway through my diatribe against this motherfucker, and it's like, well, if I really let him have it, he's going to start feeding. So I'm not going to feed that demon by the way, via my demon of wrath. So I had to keep it righteous. And I'm like, look, man, if I go to doing some shit, don't get involved. Like, what are you even doing? This is crazy. But later on, I was able to review it and be like, oh, that's his pattern. Because now in his world, what happens is, see, he's around these trap setters. So in the matriarchy, we all go to I'm not involved. It's passive aggressive. So, and my dad has no resistance to this because he wasn't socialized this way. He was socialized through the masculine. So they set these traps for him. So she goes to throw something away, but like she set a trap where he was supposed to have thrown the garbage away. And now she goes to bitching at him. She's bitching at him about now the trash can's full. Well, I don't care that the fucking trash can's full. I'll take the shit out myself. If I'm inconvenienced by the full trash can, I'll take the fucking trash out, motherfucker. Leave me alone. But see, he's got this pattern with her, and it's based on his own fear that he's going to get caught like a little boy doing something wrong, and now mommy's going to admonish him. See, which has nothing to do with me. At one point, after he finally got moved into his apartment, I walked my happy ass 4 miles round trip to Walmart, got my food that I needed for the day, and I'm walking in the door, and I got something in my hands, and dude, I'm not even done knocking on the door yet, Door flies open, and he goes trying to grab stuff out of my hand. I said, I just looked at him. I said, man, you better get the fuck away from me. Because, see, he's physically intervening to what I'm doing. And he kind of looked confused. I said, you're attending to me. And he did this in the apartment, too, a couple of times. Fucking door flies open. He's right there attending to my needs. I said, man, I don't have people that attend to me. What are you doing? And meanwhile, I'm a hermit. Leave me the fuck alone, man. See how sick it becomes? These people are sick. Well, so then he got moved into the apartment, and I was there for a short time. Well, now I'm able to go back to truck driving. I went back to truck driving. So now I know him. Talcott can't be alone in a house. That's why he's trying to bring in these. That's why he was trying to bring in the drug addicts, and that's why he's on the metaverse. Well, my dad, same thing. He sat around that apartment by himself long enough to get his head right. Well, of course, now he goes on Facebook, finds him a lady. He moved to another town. He finally got it through his thick head not to just move in with the woman, though, because that becomes the matriarchy. So he's got his own apartment, but she comes and stays a night with him. And then I guess, in the morning time, I guess she goes back to her own place, presumably. I don't really know. None of my business unless he tells me. I guess I'll find out around 10:30 a.m. when I text him back after because I know to give him enough time to wake the fuck up because he's basically incoherent for several hours after he first awakens because he's old, befuddled to some degree. So he don't need me now. See, I was coming to visit some of the time, on my truck driving. But once he met that lady and started to travel to visit her, he really didn't want me around anymore. See, because now he's got his Jack Talcott outlet for interaction. See, it's not his fault necessarily, but he's just unable to use. He will use people, and he doesn't have any control over that. And that's not absolving him of guilt. That's saying that's what he will do. It's up to me to have the. I always have to check him and be like, no, man, this is not going to fly. What are you even doing here? Knock it the fuck off, man. But by the way, who wants to be around somebody that I constantly have to check? So yeah, I could go stay with Tommy and check him 10 times a day. Who wants that? And by the way, his dog lives there, and Tommy's more or less stated how important his dog is. Well, now I got to alpha the fucking dog, right? You can't let I can't let the dog be in charge. Like, I don't like having to do that. Go into somebody's home, and now I'm having to seize his pet by the throat and put it on its back and look at it some type of way. Like, you might as well go ahead and figure out, little doggy, that I'm running this shit. I'm not running this. I'm not in charge of this physical space, but I outrank you, sir. I don't like to have to do that, but I will if I have to. And it's funny how women need that from us too. It reminds me of camping out with ex-wife number 2, and this is a story I've told because I recognized that after I traveled to the West Coast, a lot of my experience over there was realizing how much my second wife would love the West Coast, but she grew up on a chicken farm in Arkansas. She's never been anywhere but Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and maybe Florida. Yeah, Florida, up until that point. So eventually, it took me years, by the way, years of meeting her where she lived, and finally was able to get her to escape her fears and leave the comforts of home and her home culture and venture off to the West Coast, which she loves. And she travels and lives a bohemian lifestyle to this day, as far as I'm aware. I think she finally realized I was keeping tabs on her through her Facebook, and I think I don't even use Facebook or understand it. So if I can't just easily look her up on Facebook, like now it's obfuscated, and I don't even understand Facebook to the level of and nor do I want to know. But what I know is, I've definitely left that one better than I found her. But at a certain point, we were sleeping under the stars in Santa Barbara County out by the 101 in Goleta. And I had found me a real nice camp spot, but it was, and we did pitch a tent there as well at times. But it was a spot where it was better off without a tent overall. It was a little more stealthy. Well, she had not really been in this kind of situation, and it is like it's by some train tracks, like, the fucking train kids would come through there sometimes, although it wasn't the hop out necessarily, but just various characters would be roaming around the area. Well, I was uniquely suited to physically protect the both of us. And in fact, I actually physically confronted a pit bull that invaded our camp in that same spot later on. Well, so see, she needed me in the moment. She needed me to show her that I'm and I don't even like saying the alpha. She needed me to show her my masculine strength. So she went to tripping, bared her fangs at me, started barking at me, and like literally exposed her neck to me. And I'm just looking at her like, oh, this bitch needs me to wrap my hand around her neck and show her who's boss. So I very lovingly and gently wrapped my big strong hand around her throat and just gently guided her onto her back and held my hand to her throat without squeezing and just looked at her in the eyes and was basically like, are we done here? Like, have you seen what you need to see out of this? Like, do you understand that I'm very well suited to this? I can handle whatever comes along. It's not a problem. And which I was at that time, and still am to some extent. It's a certain skill set involved in being able to just go sleep in random spots with all kinds of nefarious characters roaming about and to always maintain your physical safety. There's just something to that. I might be just enough Cherokee to be able to do that. I think that's apparently the U.S. government had identified that in some of the native peoples, those abilities to detect the approach of the enemy, even as I'm sleeping. If the enemy comes too close, I always, something about my consciousness can always detect the approach of the enemy. Oh, no, my dad, the thing about my dad is he's, part of how he was taught was to be a one-woman man. So, dude, this guy could literally, he could have been banging 35-year-olds for the last, ever since him and my mom divorced. He could have just started banging young broads. Some guys are able to do that and just have no interest in it. He only dates women near his age. He's never dated a woman that wasn't approximately his age, ever. And I've always liked women my age, but not 47, too close to menopause. Once they approach menopause, I lose interest. No offense, ladies. I'm just speaking reality based on what Benton likes. But Benton also likes some other things that are less than honorable. So, or he has in the past. I really don't now, actually. As much as I play that up, it's really not even a thing anymore, to be honest with you, if you know what I'm talking about. I did pray that away, thank God. Got delivered from that. Well, but you see, in Woody, he says a good woman can guide from behind. I agree, but they don't know anything about the strong masculine warrior spirit. I'm so strongly identified with those parts of myself, there's nothing they can tell me or teach me in that realm, like literally nothing. It's just like that one time I said Paul enslaved because, you had Jeff Pizer and some other people over here, more or less and crying about needed to be guided into becoming men. And it might not have been Pizer, but it was somebody. And I was like, look, Paul enslaved can't tell me anything about being a man. When what I'm saying by that is there's no room for improvement in that area. Or if there is, it's based on my own, I'm not living up to something. but I will, I can detect it and I understand it well enough to correct it on my own. It's not for somebody outside of me to dictate that to me. See, like there's no lady who can tell me anything about, but they can through how they respond to me. If I'm some of these guys, they don't properly access their masculinity and their aggression. Now a woman can guide them at that, because women are experts in how they respond to the masculine energy. And that's back to when I talk about, so yeah, Woody is right in that regard. So if a man has not been in touch with his masculine spirit, his assertive masculine dominant spirit, and he's now beginning to practice those things, well, necessarily he's going to fall flat, just like learning how to ride a bike or learning how to snowboard. He's going to fall. And the woman is an expert. She provides expert level feedback in real time to the man based on how she responds. So Woody actually is right. I tried to say he was wrong, but actually he's right here. Yeah, absolutely. Because even if a man is trying to fake it till he makes it and mimic these behaviors, she'll go along with the mimicry, but the instant he makes one little misstep, she will give him immediate feedback, because now it's incongruent and she won't have anything to do with that part of it. She's like, okay, well now, so the woman who was giving him attention and feeding into his ego and because we do view ourselves based on how they view us. And because I've experienced this myself when I was practicing certain things, the instant I go off a course, she immediately gives me feedback, negative feedback. And I'm like, okay, I see what's happening here. They're experts in that. So you're right, Woody. They can provide feedback. And there's certainly some guidance in, hey man, I know you can go into this situation and set the room on fire and burn it all down. And but maybe don't do that just yet, and you can always do that later. Like, yeah, that sort of thing. I've had help, but again, that's still from the feminine or the passive. Like, hey man, yeah, you can absolutely go burn everything to the ground, but maybe hold off on that for a little while. And then if that's the proper course of action, you can always go ahead and do that later. You don't have to burn the room down. You don't have to burn down the house just now. Well, and that's the balance, and that's the sum of its parts, Woody. He says she could be a conciliary to the emotions of others. Yeah, I would agree with that to some extent. And it's like, the sum is greater than the total is whatever that is. The sum is greater than, you know what I'm trying to say. I don't know why I'm getting that backwards right now, but the man and the woman together in balance is greater than the man by himself or the woman by herself. If you take what the man is on his own and add that up, and you take what the woman is, whatever they are together in harmony and in balance is greater than those two sums. There's like a magnification effect, right? Of course there is. So I don't think it's any coincidence that you have men aren't men anymore, but women are still women, but they're also having to take on the male role. And they're doing okay at it, but it's men's fault that they're put in that position. If men were doing their job collectively, women wouldn't have to be picking up the slack. Yeah, synergy, exactly, Woody. And I think maybe this comes back to the cosmic blessing. See, I really am a hermit. I really don't need that. But the times when me and my partner were on the same page, that was greater than our output would be individually. So I recognize that. But every man hath not the same office. Hopefully I'm out of that business. And I feel like I have a lot to offer. Let other people take it and work with it. So whatever AJ Lloyd's working with, he can hear me speak on some topics, and maybe he can maybe he can take those ideas and he can apply it. And then maybe one day he will be in that situation where him and his woman are on the same level. And then that they'll be magnifying each other, right? They'll be, the exponential growth through harmony. But I'm going to balance these energies within myself eventually. People like to blame environmental inputs. Yep, but lifting weights can solve a lot of problems. Yeah, I agree, Woody. And, I recognize, and part of this was that I did teach myself logic and reason. And part of that process, I realized at a certain point, because I still sometimes start feeling sorry for myself. And what I recognized, especially living, in the streets, and I've experienced the depths of hopelessness and despair. I've fully engaged with those emotions. I've just surrendered to those emotions in the moment and fully experienced them. And, the only way out is through. If you find yourself in hell, keep going, right? If you find yourself going through hell, keep going. The only way out is through. So, as much as I didn't want to, I was able to sit with those feelings and not seek escape in the moment. To just be like, wow, this must be like what people feel like right before they blow their freaking, right before they do that thing that causes them not to be here anymore. Like, wow, I'm really there now. It's almost like I didn't even think this was possible. But I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Not directly. I would do it indirectly through something like alcohol, but which is what I was attempting to do very recently. But I knew I was doing that as I was doing it because I don't lie to myself. But anyway, and that's why I can see what Crunchy B's doing. That's why that's why the Spirit of Wrath found an outlet. And when Timmy was trying to address Crunchy B and didn't know what the fuck he was talking about, and was full of shit because he was. So I realized, okay, I have a set of circumstances. Everybody has a set of circumstances, but then it feels like the circumstances is doing something to us. So then the flaw in our logic is we let the feeling cause us to think, if only I resolve these circumstances, then I won't feel this way anymore. The reality is, if I resolve these circumstances, the present set of circumstances will be replaced by a new set of circumstances that may very well cause the same emotions or different negative emotions that are just as intense. So I realize it's really pointless for me to try to achieve anything. Well, not to achieve anything. It's pointless to try to achieve the resolution of these emotions through the changing of the circumstances, through the resolution of the circumstance. So now I'm realizing I'm in this situation, but resolving my present circumstances won't do anything about however I feel about it. See, so I don't even need to go there. But I see most people falsely believe, if only I'm able to resolve these circumstances, then I can rest, then I can be at peace, then I can have comfort. Oh, no, no, no. You'll just have a new set of circumstances, and you will most likely still be experiencing the same level of strong negative emotion, just it might be a different strong negative emotion. Instead of hopelessness, it might be despair. You say it might be depression, it might be, any number of things, right? And I'm not a person I'm not ever a person. I'm not able to, this is why I say I don't, I haven't ever suffered from depression, and I haven't but I've been there, but I can't stay there. And that's probably, again, part of the cosmic blessing. I can go to those depths, but I'm not able to remain there, thankfully. Same thing with the drinking. I was almost able to stay there long enough to end my life, almost. But I do have a strong will to live. And it's only really because my organs are just not able to stand up to the alcohol. It's not Leaving Las Vegas. Look at, I think there is some truth in that movie, Leaving Las Vegas with Nicolas Cage. Like, look how much alcohol that guy had to drink to actually kill himself. Like, that was a lot of booze. I hear the level of booze that guy was drinking. Oh, that's one of my favorites, Woody. It was rough. I agree. I'm a big Elizabeth Shue fan, by the way. But yeah, that is a rough one. I agree. But something about that, and then you get into the emotions of it. That's probably, sometimes I think music and movies is the way I experience certain emotional states that it's just it's difficult for me to experience otherwise, especially with my lower EQ, as it were, or as it may be. Yeah, and Woody's talking about the drinking. Yeah, I hear you, man. And this is kind of what I was talking about with Crunchy B. And I know Woody has a little bit higher level of, he's at a higher level of attainment most likely than old Crunchy B. But he says I can't justify beers anymore. The psychic storm is over for now. But and that does seem to be a recognition that you're probably not, you're probably not done with the booze. That's how I'm interpreting your comments here. But for me, I think I finally reached a point to where it was just, you know, at a certain point I finally realized it was like, oh, you know, I'm the reason why I drink. I only want to drink to get intoxicated. I really don't even like alcohol, and that's a true statement for the most part. And furthermore, I realized the nature of alcohol is a poison, and the nature of poisoning oneself is destructive. So it's like, oh, I drink to. So somebody like, Crunchy Bee may believe he's drinking to be social, to socialize with other people. Well, but it's the alcohol only does that through a destructive means. It never provides you with anything. It only ever destroys something. So the alcohol is destroying whatever it is that's preventing Crunchy Bee from socializing and making friends in the metaverse. So everything alcohol does for somebody, it does through destruction. And the thing is, alcohol destroys everything. It destroys your relationships if you let it. It destroys your physical being if you let it. It destroys your anxiety if you let it. Destroys whatever emotions you're feeling if you let it. That's what it does. And it really and eventually I'm like, well, I'm drinking 12 to 18 beers a day. I guess I'm just drinking myself to death at this point. It's like, but then it's like, am I really? It's like, yeah, did I really ever reach the point where I bought that ticket to take that ride? I guess not, because finally, like I said, my organs just tapped out and said, wow, I guess this he's really going to kill us. And then, so what choice did I have other than to just realize it? It's like, wow, am I really just going to drink until I'm dead? It's, while I wasn't lying to myself, it was also like, okay, are we really going to do this? Because if you are, then why would the kidney and the pancreas and the liver, you try to reach some level of health, just try to recover from the drinking? Well, shit, he's really going to kill us. Let's just go ahead and tap out now, which is what happened. My fucking organs tapped out. And then I was like, well, okay, I'm always just quit drinking. I quit drinking for like 3 days, and the withdrawals were fucking horrible. But I was like, wow, I didn't even know how sick I was. And it was like, okay, go back to drinking temporarily. And then it was like, I got to plan my strategy for getting off the booze. Got off the booze. Took 3 weeks to get off the booze with using THC, and in some way replaced And I guess I was disconnected for some period of time. I'm not sure how long, but I'm back now. Yeah, right, drunk, edit, sober. There you go. Well, and then what does that do for Hemingway? The alcohol destroys whatever's blocking his writing. And again, it's always destructive. So there something was keeping him from accessing those states of creativity. The alcohol kills whatever that obstacle is. That's why it's alcohol removes inhibition. Yeah, it destroys inhibition, just like it destroys everything else. So that's what Crunchy B's doing, is he's obliterating. But alcohol, it obliterates everything. It doesn't discriminate in what it obliterates. Alcohol does not discriminate with respect to what it obliterates. It obliterates everything. Okay, 30 seconds. Well, I didn't say much in those 30 seconds. And see, part of my sickness, it's not even that I'm sick on a daily basis, it's that these herbs and supplements are so strong that I'm constantly going into these detoxes, and that manifests as feeling sick. So like I woke up and I felt more or less felt fine, but then it's like now I'm going back to the strong herbs. But some people would say, "Oh, that's making you sick." No, it's actually healing me. But part of the healing is I'm going to feel sick. That's what detox is. Whatever the chemicals are in my body that have built up in, like, literally in my organs. Well, as the body clears them, it can only clear them by dealing with them, and it makes me sick. Makes me feel sick because I didn't feel sick when I initially encountered the poison. The body said, "Okay, instead of becoming sick by this substance, we'll just hide it away somewhere, and we'll sequester it off to the side somewhere." So now all those things that have built up over time, now it's now being removed. And part of that process is I'm sick as a fucking dog on a daily basis. So that if the trucking company could figure out Benton can only work from midnight to noon, or maybe 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the latest, that's it. That's all I got because of this process I'm engaged in. It's not my problem well, it is my problem in the short term, but in the long term, it's not my problem that they can't figure it out. They lose. Because why? Because I'm an excellent truck driver. That's why. But I might be more inclined to find another way to mine the fiat, because there are companies I know where I can work at night, but it's not going to suit me other ways. I won't be able to work 7 days. It'll be a 5-day work week, and it'll be a maximizing of the clock. And I don't want to, I'm just not going to do that. I'm only really good for about 8 hours of actual driving, day in and day out. 8, possibly 10. But yeah, about 8.5 on average, I would say, which, surprise, surprise, that just happens to be pretty close to what a driver can drive legally if he drives every day. You can drive right around, with the fueling and the pre-trip, you're right around 8 hours, basically. Right at 8 hours. Legally, I can drive 7 days a week unto perpetuity. So I don't think that's a coincidence that I can do. Basically, that's what I can do. And obviously, I also don't think it's a coincidence that the beast system's trying to keep me from that. See, or I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep living in the truck and just only do what I can do until they. But I'm trying to avoid where they just kick me out of the truck, and then I have all these things I've purchased that I bought. But look, and now we're back to the Fight Club. The things you own end up owning you. At some point, I may just have to walk away and leave whatever I can't carry. I mean, I know that that's a possibility. But I've between the supplements and the computer equipment and the clothing, I can't physically carry all of it, right? So now I'm like, well, how much of these electronics do I keep? I'm going to pretty much need to keep almost all the supplements. There's a few things I could toss, because some of this is stuff I've experimented with and it's just not for me, so it can be thrown away. What's up, ATBAFE? Yeah. Yeah, Woody needs some people to chat with down there. What's up, Rob? Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. And so this is, and where I get to when I'm reviewing my broadcasts is, the parts of it that's just me lashing out and being and on some bullshit. Just, if the audience is patient with me, I'll get back to what I've been doing today. I'll get back there eventually. It's just sometimes it takes me a minute to get back on track. So I appreciate your patience. Okay, awesome. Shout out to the ladies, by the way, as always. And then, I do think that's interesting with the ladies too, that, it seems what I'm observing, especially in this metaverse, it's not the women putting this weird sexual connotation on all male-female interaction. Now, men do it. Now, women, for the most part, women, it's not women doing that. It's men doing that. So it's like almost like, and it's not the men here doing that, but it's more in the larger metaverse. It's like, dude, I'm able to just be myself. I'm able to be my masculine self around a lady and not even think about sex. But I can still, appreciate her form on some level, but not, I'm not preoccupied with sex. So now I think it ties back in with the repression. How many of these dudes have not resolved their own repressed sexuality? And I don't mean homosexual repression. I'm just talking about actual repression of sexuality, and haven't really ever been able to express sexuality in a healthy way with women. I have, thank God. That's certainly a gift that women gave to me, to able to have a normal, healthy expression of sexuality, my sexuality with a woman, as she's engaged in that same healthy expression of her sexuality. And so what I see is, like, even if I'm just talking to a woman on the metaverse, and it's not the guys here, I'm saying there's guys in other spheres who they immediately want to take it to some sexual level. And I think that's a projection. Like, now, wait a minute. Some of these guys, they may have some weird creepiness around their own that they haven't resolved. That don't have nothing to do with me, y'all. And when Pamela says that she, talks about I'm easy to talk to, I got to think that has something to do with it, because I'm not sublimating my masculinity and pretending like I don't have sexual desire for the feminine form. I'm saying I'm free to just be my masculine self, which I think now she's free to, whatever woman's free to be her feminine self, without me trying to get creepy and weird, and trying to. And by the way, if I want to hit on a lady, I will, but I'm not. That's not my thing. I've never had a problem in my life coming on to a woman in a non-creepy way where she understands, oh, this dude's letting it be known that, he might want to get a piece of this, but not in a, let's have a one night stand, more in a, hey, let's get to know each other, but I'm still going to want to bang you at some point, right? It's like, yeah, I want more out of this than just the sexual, but I also want the sexual at some point, right? Like, I'm not going to wait forever. I would rather, yeah, let's have a couple of dates and get to know each other. But I'm also, the sexual tension is palatable. It's like I'm not going to go much beyond 3 dates before I'm going to expect it, right? And they got to say, what do you mean? Well, the same lady who might meet me and might think I'm boyfriend material, well, she might have other guys that she just immediately gives it to, because she doesn't see them as boyfriend material. She just sees them as a guy that she'll have sex with. So they're not expected to meet any standard. But if I'm dumb enough to let her string me along for 15 dates and never get any, that's never been me. It's like, at a certain point, I had to tell wife number 2. I said, listen, I said, I know there's guys. I said, I understand that you might think I'm boyfriend material and you're trying to, save yourself. But I said, I'm not going to stick around. Like, I can meet other women here. It's like, at a certain point, you're either giving me some or I'm going somewhere else. And meanwhile, and I was able to communicate to her, meanwhile, I understand There's other guys you'll just give some to, but you'll never be their girlfriend because they're not, either they're not available or they're just not on your level to be in a relationship with you. So it's like, look, I'm not some chump that you can play. So it's like, hey, are we going to do this or not? But I'm not forceful. It's like, I'm not going to just take some. So, what is it? She's going to have to submit on a certain level. I'm not just going to, commit a fucking crime against her. That's not ever going to happen. That's not my style. I think sometimes they want to see, or if you're going to take it to. I'm like, no, I'm not that guy. Absolutely not. I'm on one, Provo kid. You said it, brother, and that's a compliment coming from you. I appreciate it. All right, I will drop the link, sir. We probably need to get a couple of people in here though, because my energy's waning. So I will drop the link, but I need multiples in here, or I need if Provo kid wants to monologue, he can have it. So give me a second. Give the boomer a second to get the link dropped, if you would. There we go. What's up, Chuck? Thank you, sir. I know I'm onto something if I can get Chuck to agree with me. Hmm. Oh, drop the likes, he said. See, I misread. I thought he said drop the link. Yeah, thanks, Provo. I appreciate it. I was in Provo recently, but I'm not the type to try to. Sometimes people, I've seen other people, not Provo, but other people, because I'm in their area, want to try to meet up or whatever. It's like, nah, man, we can meet up and live stream it, but I ain't really trying to meet nobody in the physical. Although I am looking for a shed in the backyard to spend a couple of months in, if we can make that happen. It's getting to be good weather. Take all your lawnmowers and your implements out of your shed, run an extension cord out there, cut a hole in the side, and we'll put a window unit in there, and old Benton will come make content in your shed for a couple of months. But anyway, the link is out there if we want to go to a panel, because I am starting to run out of steam. And that's, by the way, it's part of the illness, man, the sick man. Just I've got energy to do what I can do, but when I don't, I don't. And I never have that energy at 2 p.m. I just don't. No matter what I do, I'm never having that energy at that time. I could probably sleep from like 2 p.m. to midnight. I could probably do that if I didn't have other shit to do. For real. Yeah, O'Shea, for example. Exactly, Chuck. And I was thinking about him. And that's the thing is, he can resolve all that, right? I would say to him, not that I would give advice if I was him, because he is funny. I understand people try to say he's not. He is a funny guy at the level of comedy, and maybe he can resolve that through his comedy. I don't know, all that weird, all the weird sex stuff that he tries to project onto situations. Yeah, I don't know yet, Chuck. That's a good question, man. That's probably a good topic to get on. How in the world am I going to resolve what I'm doing right now? So, if I continue to work this job for this company, I'm only prolonging, eventually I got to think they're just going to fire me. But one thing I think about though is they let this truck that I'm driving, they let this thing just sit at a truck stop, some little country, in some little town somewhere, one of those little podunk truck stops. Because if you just leave a rig at like a Flying J, eventually it'll get towed out of there. But they just left it for God knows how long, and it's so much so that the batteries had lost their charge and had to be replaced. They wouldn't even charge. That's how long this thing sat there. So for all I know, they're so laissez-faire. Maybe they'll just let me keep just basically at this point. If I can't do it, I'm just not doing it. So I can drive 400 to 500 miles a day, but if they can't figure out the logistics, I basically sat at the truck stop in Salt Lake City for like 34 hours, which I really don't mind, except for the part where I had a good 2 hours of content in me the other morning that never expressed because I was under the impression they were going to send me to go pick up a load, and they never did. And then finally, at like 10:30 a.m., they're trying to send me 3 hours to Rock Springs, Wyoming, and I'm going to get to the receiver, the shipper at 2 p.m. I'm done, man. I'm done for the day at 2 p.m. I got nothing left to give. Now, conceivably I could just now if it's a place where I can get loaded and just park on their property overnight until midnight and then roll out, see, that might work. But I need somebody to manage that process. I can't just go into that willy-nilly like, okay, maybe I can just park there, maybe I can't. Like, and that's part of that's the hypervigilance and the autism. It's like, oh, it's the information age, but nobody can figure out ahead of time, hey, Benton, just drive 3 hours, get there at 2, get there at 1:30. They'll have you loaded by 5 and you can just park there, right? Like, it's not up to me to and then, by the way, the only way I'll know is when I get there. But then sometimes when you get there, they're like, no, you got to get the fuck out of here. And now it's like, okay, well, if I have to hit the drive line on my clock at 5 p.m., now I got to do a 10-hour break. So now I can't leave. I can't roll out until 3 a.m. So now you're cutting into my driving hours. See what I'm saying? Like, why do I have to manage that whole process? Why can't the human being that is presumably making their commissions, the dispatcher, why can't they figure that out? I don't know, but they can't. So what I think I'm going to do, Chuck, I might just ask permission and say, hey, man, just look, this is what it is. I've got so much of my stuff in this truck. My dad, normally I would just box all this bullshit up and ship it to my dad's apartment, but he's got this woman staying over there every night. I can't really go stay with him long enough to figure out my own living situation. I need to just drive this bobtail to Arkansas, unload all my bullshit into a motel by the week, and then figure it out from there. Because half this shit just needs to go the fuck away somewhere, or get taken to my storage, which is in a completely different town in Arkansas, by the way. See what I'm saying? They need to just let me take the bobtail to Arkansas. But see, now, do they trust me to bring the motherfucker back? That's the thing. I will bring it back to Fort Worth, and I'll just hitchhike back to Arkansas. That's what I'll do. But that's probably so outside their realm of experience. Is this guy really going to hitchhike back to Arkansas? It's like, yeah, it may take me a week, but I will. Yeah, sure. Why not? Or I can ride the megabus to Little Rock and figure it out from there. Well, and there is a thing about creepiness. If he leans into it and has awareness of it, it actually kind of it comes around, and it like actually like isn't even really creepy eventually. But You know, the thing with ladies that I've noticed is once a guy shows the creepiness, you know, there has to be something really wrong with a woman like this Annie chick. You know, if a chick will see a man be creepy and then still get with him, that's a bad, bad, bad sign. And at a certain time, I realized that I could still attract women, but it was like, I don't want anything to do with the type of woman that would have had anything to do with me when I was in that state. Because, you know, you only really attract something that's on your same level. Like whatever my fucking flaws are, whatever my character defects were, I'm going to end up attracting a woman with more or less the same level of shit. Right. So if O'Shea's creepy, he's going to end up with a creep like Annie. She's probably creepy because some women are creepy. I've experienced it. It is a thing. I have not seen that movie. Woody, once were warriors. No, sir. But so yeah, I mean, really, what I need to do is first I have to get these supplements out of my. I've got so first thing I'm going to do is drop this trailer off at the yard. Then I'm going to go to my Amazon. Go to the Amazon locker, get the supplements, and then by then I may be able to go to Walmart and at least get a few days worth of fruit and stock up on water. I've got food. That's another thing. I've got food. I've got like $100 worth of food I'd rather not just walk away from that I can't carry also. So probably once I get all that done, I may just go talk to the operations manager and be like, look, man, I really need to just take it out of my check, whatever you guys think is the cost of me driving to Arkansas and back, and let me move out of this truck. And then hell, I might just stay employed. And because I was like, look, I'm not going to work for anybody else during these 2 months. So if y'all want to keep me on the fucking books, you know, I'll probably be well enough to come back. But then after 6 months of driving, I'll probably be sick again, and you know, to the point where I'll have to go take another 2 months off. You know, however they want to do it, we'll see. Or they might want to try to just get me a load to Arkansas and then get me a load back. So I'd be open to that, but I'd really rather just pay whatever they want me to pay, take it out of my check, and just let me bobtail to Arkansas and clean out this truck. And that's even hoping that there's one place that's halfway affordable by the week that I know of that's also within walking distance of a Walmart where I can go get my groceries without having to buy a car. And there's a laundromat nearby. So hopefully, but I might get there and they might be at capacity. But there's another one down the street that I could stay in long enough for a room to but even then I'd have to physically move my stuff on foot. You know, I guess I'd probably just have to call a taxi to get my stuff moved half a mile or whatever. I'm still fit, man, but with my organs like they are, there's a limit to what I can do physically. Certainly. Oh, Woody took a low dose of mushrooms. Oh, excellent. Yeah, I would like to mega dose here pretty soon. Yeah, yeah, exactly. She paid attention to O'Shea, and then, you know, that's also where we get into person A using person B for person A's own gratification. But look how sick it is when both people are doing that thing. See, that's what I see in this situation. They were both doing that, and that's real sick. And that's not even adding in whatever Shady Jeff was up to. I mean, and you know, when Yurt went on Discord and had his whatever bad experience he had, and I posted that on his community tab on his original channel. I said, or it might have been on, I don't know which channel it was, but I said, yeah, man, Discord. The name, it's right there in the name. Like, And I just copied and pasted the meaning of the word Discord. Same thing with Shady Jeff, man. It's right there in the title, Shady Jeff. Like it tells you what it is. So believe it when it tells you what it is. I would never get involved in that, but what I would or wouldn't get involved with, what that's neither here nor there. 37 more minutes. I get to eat. Awesome. There goes Carvana. That turned out to more or less be a scam. Carvana. Well, and Chuck, I'll tell you how I interpret your comment there, and I'll read it out loud, but I don't see. I don't. And then, by the way, me and Chuck have different perspectives. We're not supposed to share the same perspective, but I'll share my perspective. Uh, and Chuck, this whether or not this sounds like an insult to you, I mean, it's not intended that way, but it might come across that way. He says Yurt got cross at me for not knowing the real him. I was like, dude, you've reinvented yourself so many times. I didn't really know, and that's valid. Now, what I'll say about you, Chuck, that I don't think Yurt realizes, and this is not, again, it's not meant as an insult, but I don't think Yurt really has a full understanding of how strong his personality is. That he does have this like strong force of personality. Now, maybe he does. I don't know, but or if he's aware of it, I don't think he's fully realized it as a full expression of just a force of personality, especially with respect to being a powerful force of personality on the internet. See, I did this. This is part of what I went through when I talked about having a top 10 all-time thread on the JRE message board, the Joe Rogan Experience message board. That was when I look back on those experiences, that a lot of that was me really getting to understand the actual force of my personality, which, by the way, doesn't make me better or worse than anybody else. It's a thing, right? So I don't think what Yurt realizes is that there's people like Chuck who aren't possessed of that force of personality, or maybe they used to be and they're not now. I don't know. Or maybe they are and they're not utilizing it and they don't want to utilize it, but then they are able to. And I think this is probably what I said that ran Snicker Pie off, was that, okay, so somebody who wants to have certain interactions in the metaverse, they're kind of beholden to the strong personality. So I think Yurt doesn't realize that some of that is just people are necessarily going to use his personality as a catalyst to play off of. And see, I recognize it and I more or less accept it, that that's what happens with me, and I'm okay with it. And, there's times when I will push back against it. and there's times when I'll limit it, but like I understand the dynamic. Like, yeah, the fact that I go onto the metaverse and I most of the time act through my strong personality, my force of personality, other people are necessarily going to play off of that. And it's for me now, am I able to respond to how they react to my force of personality? See, that's a dance all its own. And I don't know that Yurt has fully, I don't know that he has enough experience with that yet. And by the way, what is that? By the way, what is that, Yurt? That is performance art. What I'm describing, that's an artist. That is Salvador Dali. So that, and see, I think Yurt's saying, yeah, I came back as Salvador, but Yurt thought he was kind of cutely making a certain point, but it wasn't the proper time, right? And I didn't understand it in the moment, but I understand it in retrospect. So that, but that is it's a performance art. So that's what I'm describing. I am, doing performance art to some degree when I come on here and do live streams. That's what this is, and I understand that some of that happens through a force of personality. Salvador Dali, by the way, a person possessed of very strong personality. Also a Leo, I believe. Also a Leo, I believe. Let me look that up. I might be wrong. I don't think I am. Salvador Dali astrology. No, I'm occasionally wrong. What's that? May 11th? What's May? May 11th. Why did I misremember that? Oh, that's shit. Anybody? I don't want to have to look this up, but I guess I will. I must be thinking of a different artist. I don't know. Warhol, perhaps? Taurus. Okay. Huh, interesting. Well, sometimes I'm way off base, guys. It happens. Yeah, Taurus. Thank you, Chuck. Not entirely wrong about the fire, though. I'm seeing a lot of fire in the chart there, so maybe I can claim a partial victory. I don't know. Then you do have Sun in an Earth sign, right? Taurus, and then Earth, and then I believe Yurt's got Virgo. That's another Earth sign. Or is it? I'm gonna have to go back and study astrology. I guess I used to pretty well know all this from off the top of my head. Yeah, I agree. Finding his way. That's kind of what I'm talking about, Chuck. Yeah, just a lack of experience. Uh, you know, and maybe not fully accepting that. We talk about Paul and Paul this and Paul that. Yurt's probably got just as strong of a personality, most likely, but I don't know that he knows it. And I used to be Josh Brolin from No Country for Old Men. He can take all comers. That's what his wife said about him. I ain't that anymore. I used to be, but those days are long gone. I'm finding my way too, Chuck, when it comes to that. I'm used to being able to just take on anybody or anything at any time. And that's no longer the case. And here comes the car out of nowhere to come interact with me. Just see that. Think of the mathematics of that, of us, whatever we've done in our lives up until this point, and we meet at exactly that point. And if I hadn't have altered my speed, we would have just perfectly met right there where that car merges onto the interstate. You know, like what had to happen for that to be a possibility? And there's just almost nobody else out here. But just they popped up. From my perspective, they just appeared out of nowhere, and then here they are, just at the perfect speed to where now we're gonna intersect. But I've slowed down to circumvent the intersection, and now they've gone on about their day. I think Woody's on one, even more than I am. Yeah. Ageless, timeless being. Yeah. Well, and I know that acronym ATBAFE. I know it's not this thing, but I always think the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. And that's what it makes me think of. BATFE. But you got two A's in there, and it's in a little different order. Gotta plug in the phone real quick. We don't lose all the battery. Yeah. Oh man, I might eat a little bit earlier and see if the old digestion can take it or not. I'm hungry. Is there anywhere to stop out here? Well, I think I'm about done for the day. Thanks for watching. Bye.